With that being said, if you don't mind, let me give you a quick biography about myself. And then it's your turn. I want to hear from you. I want you to ask me the tough questions, and I'll try to give you the straight answers. As I indicated, I'm an attorney. Now, don't hold that against me. My mother does. She wanted me to be a preacher, but I was a very rebellious child. By the way, if anybody's seen the video of me and my mother last week that I made, I see some hands. Yeah, I see some people nodding their heads. If I had the money in my campaign, I tell y'all the truth, I would have mama bobblehead dolls made up. Because that one video got more traffic and got more hits and more likes. I know I've got to come. In fact, we may just have to take a loan out over at the bank to try to order those bobbleheads. I'm convinced that will get me into the mayor's office. My sweet mother is 91 years old. I'm the youngest of her 8 children. Mother and Daddy started having children when he came home from World War II in 1947. And they didn't quit till they got it right in 1969. I'm the baby. I have 5 older brothers and 2 older sisters. And I'm married to the beautiful Heidi, who you'll meet at the end of our presentation. She's a registered nurse at St. Thomas Hospital in the ICU, and we have 2 children, Taylor and Kennerly, ages 8 and 5. Taylor's at Sunset Elementary School. Kennerly is in pre-K over at Jordan Elementary School. We've lived here since 2009. We relocated here because we liked it. We loved it. Our church, by the way, had just been founded and was started here. We were members of Providence Baptist Church over on Sunset Road, which is where the Nolensville Food Pantry is hosted. In fact, before the church actually got our building and got our offices up and running, the food pantry, you could find it in a gigantic cabinet in mine and Heidi's garage because we're just 1 mile from the church. But we chose to live here because we're close to our church, we're close to our children's school, and who wouldn't want to live in Nolensville? There is one thing that we all have in common, and I met some dear ladies that have lived here for 32 years and 31 years. I've spoken with some other folks that lived here 9 years or a decade, such as Heidi and myself. Some of you are lifelong Nolensvillians. Some of you, a lot of folks I met on the campaign trail, just moved here this summer when they relocated, and they wanted to be in a place where the schools are excellent and the quality of life is great. Some of you out on the 411, you may not have been here for 2 to 3 or 4 years yourself. It doesn't matter how long any of us have lived here. You want to know the one thing we all have in common? One thing we should all celebrate? The one thing we can all be grateful for? We all chose Nolensville to be the town of our home. We have all chosen Nolensville to be our hometown. Y'all, that is something that unites us. And as your mayor, I will seek just that. I'll try to be a uniting force for our town. We already have so many uniting forces, and I want to compliment our current Board of Mayor and Aldermen in every way. They have set a great standard for our town. I said earlier this weekend, I guess in the video, that we're a town that when someone's house burns down, we respond. How can I help? How can I get you some clothes? How can I get some gift cards to you? When the floodwaters came in 2010, and I complimented a lady yesterday who I saw out, when Heidi and I were coming back, she was 8 months pregnant. We're trying to get back to our house. She was out trying to put up a do not cross this bridge barrier. When the floodwaters come, we helped each other out. We bailed each other out literally. That's the kind of town we are, and that's the kind of mayor that I will be reflective of. I started my career after graduating from Belmont College in Nashville, as David mentioned. He and I met at Belmont. I see another friend of mine from Belmont over here as well. And you may have seen when I announced, there's some people saying, well, we knew he was going to do this at some point. He's finally getting out there. I must say that Heidi and I talked about this in the springtime and the summertime. And yes, back in my Belmont days, I may have thought one day I might be mayor. We're not on the ballot because a wonderful friend of mine was going to run for mayor, and you don't run against your good friends. You also don't run against your good friends who would wax you at the ballot box either. So I try to exercise some common sense. But when that good friend of mine, for very understandable and important family and business reasons, had to withdraw, but it was after the filing deadline, I only had one option, and that's why we're here doing the writing campaign, the typing campaign. Because I do think that my career has prepared me for this time. When I left Belmont, I worked for almost 7 years for the Tennessee Public Service Commission. It's also been known as the Tennessee Regulatory Authority. I traveled the state working with public utilities on their rates and consumer services issues. As I said, I've traveled from Shady Valley, Tennessee, which is on the other side of Mountain City. You may think that everybody thinks Mountain City is the furthest eastern point. It's not. There's Shady Valley right below it, just as its name implies. I've traveled from there. I've traveled to Memphis and everywhere in between for the state of Tennessee. I worked with consumers. I went up to the legislature and offered testimony about certain issues. And then after those almost 7 years, I left the state and I went to work for a wonderful startup telephone company. At that time, we were known as NextLink. And 2 years later, we changed our name to XO Communications, and it was there that I grew up, and I stayed 20 years, 2 decades of my life, where I was given opportunities of increasing responsibility, first in regulatory affairs, then in legal matters, and I ended my career there working in the finance department. If you imagine a lawyer that was focusing on credit and collections and fraud and subpoena processing issues, that's what I did. I learned how, when it comes to $1.5 billion company, that if we don't collect the money, we don't protect the money, we may have to lay some folks off come October and November because we've got to make our numbers at the end of the month. I understand revenue. I understand P&L statements. I had to. I was a national director of finance for the company. After 20 years, Verizon bought our company. Wonderful, wonderful business, Verizon, by the way. I have nothing but praise for them. But they gave us an opportunity to make a choice a second time to establish Nolensville as our hometown, because they said, if you want your job, we're closing down your Cool Springs Center. All 250 of you can be out of a job, but some of you can go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. If anybody here is from Oklahoma, God bless you. It's a beautiful state, I'm sure, but it's not Nolensville, is it? Heidi and I had to look and weigh our options and say, do we want to be continuing my career at Verizon in Oklahoma, or do we want to stay in Nolensville and raise our children here? So they offered me a package. I took the package, and I established my own law practice right here in town. I've been doing that for almost a year, where I focus on real estate closings, probate matters, wills, estate planning, and also, and this was one I fell backwards into, I handle juvenile court matters. Once a week I go to juvenile court. What a challenge that is after 20 years in the corporate environment, but it's something that I feel called to do, and it's an important part of my practice now. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's my experiences.